The great hall of Blackthorn Castle was full of candlelight and quiet whispers. Alpha King Kaelan Ashwood stood at the altar, his shoulders straight, his face calm. To everyone watching, he looked like a king who had already won. Only he knew how empty he felt inside. This marriage was not about love. It was about survival. The Elder Council had warned him for months that Blackthorn needed peace with its neighboring territory. And peace, in their world, was sealed through blood and vows, not treaties on paper. So Kaelan had agreed to marry a woman he had never met, a noble woman, known only as Lady Wren, daughter of a powerful border house. She was said to be graceful, intelligent, and calm under pressure. She was also, by tradition, veiled until the moment the vows were spoken. Her family followed an old custom. No one, not even the groom, could see her face before marriage. Kaelan had found the rule strange, even foolish, but he had not argued. He no longer had the patience to argue about things that did not touch his heart. Nothing did anymore, not since the night 5 years ago that he tried never to think about. The doors opened, and she walked in. She moved slowly, elegantly, her body covered in a deep blue gown, her face hidden behind a silver veil. The scent that usually told him everything about a person was blocked by a talisman she wore around her neck, something rare and expensive, used only by families who wanted absolute secrecy. Kaelan felt nothing unusual as she approached. No pull, no signal, just a stranger walking toward him under candlelight. He told himself that was for the best. The ceremony was simple. Vows were exchanged in low, formal voices. When the elder finally said the words that would bind them forever, Kaelan reached out and lifted her veil himself, as tradition required. The moment her face was revealed, something inside him broke. Her eyes were the same, sharp, brown, and steady, though colder now than he remembered. Her jaw was set the way it used to be when she was hurt, but refused to cry. Kaelan's whole body went still, his instincts screaming at him, before his mind could even form the thought. It was Elira. The mate bond, the one he had crushed with his own words 5 years ago, surged back to life in an instant, hitting him like a wave of fire and ice at once. His wolf howled inside him, desperate, aching, furious that it had been kept away for so long. Kaelan's hands trembled as he stared at her, unable to speak. "You," he whispered. Elira's expression did not change. She looked at him the way a soldier looks at an old enemy, no softness, no surprise. "Hello, Kaelan." The guests around them noticed nothing wrong. To them, the king was simply overwhelmed with emotion on his wedding day. Only Elira knew the truth, and only Kaelan understood the weight of what had just happened. He remembered that night 5 years ago too well. He had been young, prideful, terrified of what it meant to have a mate, terrified of being tied to someone in a way he could not control. When the pack gathered to witness the mate ceremony, when Elira stood before him glowing with hope, he had rejected her in front of everyone. He had called the bond a mistake. He had said words he could never take back, words that stripped her of her place in the pack, and left her humiliated before hundreds of wolves. She disappeared that same night. He had told himself she left because she wanted to escape the shame. He never searched for her. He told himself it was better this way, that mates were weaknesses kings could not afford, that he did not need anyone standing beside him to rule. He had been wrong about everything. The wedding feast passed in a blur. Kaelan sat beside his new bride, his wife, the mate he thought he would never see again, and he could not eat, could not speak more than a few words. Elira, on the other hand, seemed perfectly composed, greeting nobles with practiced smiles, discussing trade agreements with visiting dignitaries, as though she had done it 100 times. When the last guest finally left, and the doors of their private chambers closed, the calm mask Elira wore all night finally cracked. "You have questions," she said, her voice flat. "Ask them." Kaelan searched her face, trying to find the girl he remembered, the one who used to laugh freely, who used to look at him like he was the only person in the world worth seeing. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had clearly survived things he could only imagine. "Why didn't you tell me it was you?" he asked quietly. "During the arrangements, the talisman, the veil, you knew." "Yes," Elira said. "I knew from the beginning." "Then why marry me at all, after everything I did?" Her eyes hardened. Because it was time you understood what it feels like to be trapped beside someone you cannot escape. The words hit him harder than any physical blow could have. He deserved them, and he knew it. Elira told him the truth that night, piece by piece, though it clearly cost her to relive it. After he rejected her, she had no pack, no protection, and no family willing to take in a wolf who had been publicly shamed by an alpha king. She wandered for weeks, hunted more than once by rogue wolves who saw an unprotected female as easy prey. She barely survived one attack that left a scar along her ribs, a scar Kaelin would later see and feel sick over. Eventually, she was found by scouts from the neighboring territory, the very one Kaelin's marriage was meant to secure peace with. Their alpha, an old and calculating leader, took her in, not out of kindness, but because he saw potential in her. She was trained hard, taught to fight, taught to negotiate, taught to hide her scent and her emotions, until she became someone new. Over time, she rose from a broken outcast to one of the most trusted advisors in that territory, respected and feared in equal measure. When marriage negotiations with Blackthorn began, and her name was quietly proposed as the bride, she saw her chance. She volunteered before anyone could suggest otherwise. "I wanted you to feel what I felt," she admitted, her voice trembling for the first time. "Trapped, rejected, alone in a bond you never wanted." Kaelin sat in silence, absorbing every word, feeling the full weight of the damage he had caused. There was no excuse he could offer that would undo 5 years of pain. He did not try to make one. "I won't ask you to forgive me," he said finally. "I don't deserve that, but I need you to know I regret it. Every single day since that night, I have regretted it." Elira looked away. "Regret doesn't rebuild what was broken." "No," he agreed, "but maybe it's a place to start." She did not answer him that night. She simply turned and walked to the far side of the room, putting distance between them that felt far greater than the few steps she took. In the weeks that followed, Blackthorn settled into an uneasy peace. The public saw a king and queen ruling side by side, calm, composed, and dignified. Behind closed doors, Kaelin and Elira remained strangers bound by duty, circling each other with careful, guarded steps. Kaelin did not push her. He had lost the right to demand anything from her. Instead, he tried, in small ways, to show her the man he had become since the night he broke her heart. He listened when she spoke in council meetings, valuing her opinions rather than dismissing them the way the old Kaelin might have. He noticed when she was tired and quietly rearranged schedules so she could rest. He never once raised his voice at her, even when tension between them grew thick enough to choke on. Slowly, cautiously, Elira began to notice these changes too, though she refused to let herself trust them completely. The peace between the two territories, however, was more fragile than anyone realized. Word arrived one evening that a group of rogue wolves, believed to be remnants of the old enemies Elira had fought against during her training years, was moving toward Blackthorn's borders. Their goal was clear: destroy the alliance between the two territories by any means necessary, including targeting the new queen herself. Kaelin doubled the guards around the castle immediately, refusing to take any risks with Elira's safety. She, in turn, insisted on being involved in the defense planning, reminding him firmly that she was no longer the helpless girl he once abandoned. She had fought rogues before. She knew their tactics better than anyone in his court. Despite his worry, Kaelin respected her strength. He included her in every strategy meeting, trusting her instincts as much as his own generals. For the first time since the wedding, they began working together, not as strangers forced into marriage, but as partners facing a shared threat. The rogue attack came on a moonless night, swift and violent, striking near the eastern gate where security had been thinnest. Chaos erupted as warriors clashed in the dark, snarls and shouts echoing through the castle grounds. Kaelin fought at the front lines, his wolf form powerful and relentless, cutting down every threat that came near the walls. In the middle of the battle, he heard Elira's voice cry out. He turned just in time to see a rogue wolf lunging toward her from behind, fangs bared, aiming for a killing strike while her attention was fixed on another attacker. Kaelin did not think. He moved on pure instinct, throwing himself between Elira and the rogue, taking the brutal hit meant for her. Pain exploded across his side as claws tore through him. But he refused to fall, refused to let the rogue get another chance. With the last of his strength, he fought back and ended the threat, collapsing only after the danger had passed. Illyra dropped to her knees beside him, her hands pressing against his wound, her carefully built walls crumbling completely for the first time since the wedding. "Why would you do that?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Why would you risk everything for me?" Kaelin managed a weak, tired smile despite the pain. "Because you matter more than anything else I could lose." She stayed by his side through the night, as healers worked to save him, refusing to leave, even when exhaustion pulled at her. Watching him fight for his life, she was forced to confront a truth she had spent years trying to bury. Despite everything, despite the pain and the years apart, she had never truly stopped caring for him. Kaelin survived, though the road to recovery was slow. During those quiet weeks of healing, something between them finally began to shift. Illyra visited him daily, at first only to check on his wounds, then simply to talk. They spoke about small things at first, then deeper truths, memories from before everything fell apart, hopes they had once shared as young wolves who believed the future held nothing but good things. One evening, as autumn light spilled gently through the window, Illyra sat beside his bed, her walls lowered just enough to let him see the girl he once knew still existing somewhere beneath the woman she had become. "I'm still angry," she admitted quietly. "I don't think that anger will disappear completely. But I also don't hate you anymore, not the way I thought I did." Kaelin reached for her hand, relieved when she did not pull away. "I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm only asking for the chance to build something new, starting from here, starting from who we are now." Illyra studied him for a long moment, searching his face the way she had on their wedding night, only this time looking for something different, something hopeful rather than something to fear. "Maybe," she said softly, "we can try." Months later, on a clear evening beneath a full moon, the pack gathered once more, this time not for a political wedding, but for a true bonding ceremony. Illyra stood before Kaelin, not as a stranger forced into duty, not as Lady Wren hiding behind a veil, but as herself, fully known and fully seen. The mate bond that had once been broken by cruelty was restored freely, chosen this time by both of them, without politics forcing their hands. As the pack howled in celebration around them, Kaelin looked at the woman beside him, the one he had once thrown away, and now would spend the rest of his life honoring. Illyra looked back at him, her eyes finally soft, finally certain. They were no longer strangers bound by fate and duty alone. They were two people who had faced heartbreak, survived it, and chosen each other again, this time with open eyes and open hearts. And for the first time in years, Kaelin Ashwood felt whole.